Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
You know, I really do believe that speech, but not just that speech, just the fact that Kennedy was aware of the conspiracy in general was a huge part of his assassination. That speech is just so incredibly epic, I can't even put it into words. I mean, one theory, maybe he woke up to this and was like, wow, I'm in this military-industrial complex, hell, New World Order system. You know, he may not have called it that, you know, military-industrial complex, New World Order system. But, you know, he calls it a conspiracy, a secret society, so who knows what he actually called it. But, you know, anyways, I'm in the middle of this big conspiracy to deprive, you know, people of their freedom, and there's these secret societies that are actually, ruling the rulers of this country and this world. And maybe he's like, man, I need a, you know, maybe he actually had what's called morals. Yeah, you know, pretty soon that word will be taken out of the dictionary. But, you know, maybe he actually had morals and a true sense of justice, and really wanted the people to be free by bringing us that information. I mean, this guy paid his life for it. There's no doubt the New World Order had Kennedy assassinated. You know, he wasn't perfect, he was human, but man, that speech, I got a lot of respect for him to say that. You do not hear that every day coming from a head of state. And probably the reason you don't hear it is because they know that they'll get their head blown off in front of everyone. Wow. You know, really respect him for doing that, man. I mean, if you're in that high of a position and you know a huge portion are going to hear you and take heed of what you're saying, you've got to have real guts to stand up for what's right and do that. And knowing that the power that he's going up against is so huge, so vast, so powerful. You know, who knows, maybe he knew when giving that speech and, you know, talking about the conspirators that, you know, maybe he knew at that time, you know, I could definitely be killed for this, you know, because, well, anyways, that's enough about that speech, but I mean, that's a great clip right there. Just, you know, play that to some people who doubt this New World Order conspiracy, or just the fact that there's conspiracies in general. I mean, seriously, it's right there in your face, people. It's hidden in plain sight. I mean, there's so much evidence of it. It's just overwhelming, and there's not enough time to go over all the evidence in the world because it's just never ending. You just read basically any of these New World Order corporatist types, read any of their memoirs, listen to their speeches. You're going to find traces of this thing. And it's been going on a really long time. So, yeah, you know, it's just like I said, my hope in this show is it's called Conspiracy Reality, this episode. All about the reality of the situation we're in today, how vast it is. I can't even describe in the words how vast it is. I mean, every little thing you could imagine, you know. They have totally infiltrated every major part of what makes society run, meaning the media, education system, you know, finance, obviously, like we've talked about, and yeah, education system. I want to hit on that one for a little bit. You know, so incrementally they've been instilling this type of ideology, just, you know, little by little, more and more, and it gets more invasive in children's minds. You know, pretty soon, they'll start saying, if they don't already, you know, the UN is great. Well, I'm sure they say that, but you know, they'll probably start admitting in children's history books or whatever that, you know, we used to have this thing called national sovereignty. We would like to. We're now moving towards where we don't have that. National sovereignty was evil. It caused all these wars and unneeded conflicts for all citizens of the earth. You know, they say cheesy things like that. But now we have some great people that love the world and love humanity, that are setting up a one world government and one world religion where we can all be united. You know, teaching this to our children. And I mean, they're already teaching that humans are bad with this environmentalist brainwashing. I went to a school in California, very liberal public school, and my teacher, I was definitely a socialist, or I mean, extremely, liberal. I don't really like using those terms, but you guys know what I mean by that, quote, liberal. You know, liberal is not a bad term in itself, and classical liberalism is a great type of philosophy. I mean, that's basically like libertarianism. But no, liberal today means a completely different thing. It means worshiping the nanny state, just loving taxes, you know, always voting for more taxes. I live in basically the most, quote, liberal place in the U.S., or one of the most in Seattle, Washington.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight. A, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today,